A hearing on the petition of Anthony Walraven objecting to the nominating papers of Charles Brown. At this time, the board will take judicial notice of the following documents: nomination papers, objection petition, voter registration records kept by the Peoria County Election Office, record examination conducted by the Peoria County Election Office, and a number of registered voters in the general election in 2017. Are there any other documents that either party would like the board to take into notice?
No, thank you.
Pastor Brown, do you have any documents that you would like to provide to the board at this time for us to consider or take into notice? No. Okay. Are there any preliminary matters before we know the opening statements? Dr. Peno? Do either parties object to Dr. Peno's participation?
No objection from the objector.
Pastor Brown, do you object to Dr. Peno participating in the hearing? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to opening statements. The parties will now proceed with their opening statements, beginning with the objector, then the respondent. Before we do that, if I could, I want to go back to kind of procedurally for Pastor Brown, as I explained in the previous case. Each party may make a brief opening statement. It should be limited to what the party intends to prove and should not be a presentation of evidence or the merits of the case. The objector will present his evidence and or argument the case in chief first. The respondent, the candidate, shall be given the opportunity to cross-examine the objector's witnesses and present his own witnesses or present evidence. After respondent has completed his defense, the objector shall be given the opportunity to present testimony and or evidence limited to rebutting the testimony and or evidence presented during the respondent's defense or the rebuttal. Each party may make a closing argument. The parties are directed to limit their closing argument to a summation of what he or she believes has been proven. Saying that, I'll open up the opening statements to the objector, Mr. Hanauer.
I'll waive opening statement. Thank you.
Pastor Brown, your opening statement.
I push the button there, testing. Okay, I'll waive opening statement as well.
Okay. Presentation of evidence, Mr. Hanauer.
I'll call Tom Bride to the stand.
Tom, if you could. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Hanauer.
Thank you. Could you please state your name for the record, please?
Thomas Bride. I'm the Executive Director of the Peoria County Election Commission.
Thank you. And were you able to review the challenge posed by Anthony Walraven in this matter?
I was. My staff and I were.
Okay. And were you, did you or your staff undertake an analysis of the signatures that were challenged in the objection?
Yes, we did an analysis of the objected to signatures in the petitions, in Mr. Brown's petitions.
What was your analysis?
So the analysis of the petition showed 134 signatures were required. There's 134 signatures required. Mr. Brown's petitions contained 137 signatures on 14 pages. Mr. Walraven challenged 59 of the 137 signatures as qualified voters. Our analysis showed that 52 of the challenged were not registered at the listed address, or were not registered within the city of Peoria. So our conclusion was that there was 137 signatures submitted, 52 were found invalid, so we ended up with a total number of 85 valid signatures after the challenge.
And how many signatures are required of the candidates in this election based upon are the signature requirements based upon percentage of the voting population in the prior election?
The number of signatures, the 134, is based on the total votes, is 1% of the total votes cast in the last election for that office, which was in 2017.
And what was that 1% calculation?
134.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Brown, Pastor Brown, would you like to cross-examine Tom?
No, not on the, that was the facts that you looked up, all the candidates, based on their objection, and you were able to verify, what you just presented to me today. So I'll take what you presented as proof of their objection.
Is there any reason to redirect or?
No.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Mr. Hanauer, do you have any other witnesses or evidence?
No other witnesses, no other evidence, and I guess I don't know the propriety of it, but based on the statements made by the candidate, I would ask for a directed finding indicating that he has not challenged the objection or the evidence of Mr. Bride on the witness stand and acknowledged that the signature requirement has not been met. Thank you.
I do have one objection to, okay.
For the sake of the process, I'm going to allow the hearing to continue and ask Pastor Brown to present your case in chief. And if you have any witnesses that you would like to call.
Okay. Well, my challenge to this objection is the 27th. Although the election commission was closed, the United States Post Office.
I would object to the extent we're getting into argument as opposed to testimony.
I'm gonna grant Pastor Brown some latitude based on not having legal representation here and try to understand what his case is.
Okay, thank you. The 27th was not a federal holiday. It was a day off for the election commission. Therefore, each candidate had 5 days to challenge the validity of each candidate's petition, and this was filed on the 3rd, which made it 6 days. And again, although the election commission was closed, the United States Post Office, which is federal, was open. Businesses were open, and it was considered a business day. So they had ample time from the final date for us to register, which was the 23rd. That gave them the 24th, 25th, which was that Tuesday and Wednesday. 26th was a federal holiday on the calendar, which was Thanksgiving. That Friday, the 27th, many companies and people chose to close, but it did not make it a federal holiday. And then that gave them that Monday and Tuesday to file for the objection. However, it was done at 3:05 on that Wednesday. Therefore, the objection should be disqualified based on the date.
Pastor Brown, do you have any evidence to present or any witnesses?
No, just the sheer calendar date. Based on that, this should be disqualified. Their objection. They were given 5 days based on the instruction that was given to us, the 65-page instruction. I don't question 134 names that were required. We did get the rules. Every candidate did receive the rules. I guess in my, guess you could say, inexperience running for office, I took those who were very excited and looking to support my campaign. I take people based on their word. I think ignorance toward what it required is not the fault of the Board of Elections, but it is the challenge of each of us as candidates to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. And I got 137 signatures, and I did not double or triple the number of signatures required. Again, that's my inexperience as a candidate and no fault of the Board of Elections. The rules are the rules.
Mr. Hanauer, your rebuttal.
I guess I'm a little confused with the timing because I heard a few different things, but to the extent that the deadline for filing a challenge to the candidate's petition fell on a holiday, the law requires or permits that anything that requires the doing of any act that falls on a weekend or a holiday, it is then the next business day would be the deadline for doing that act or performing that act. If that was if that was what he was indicating. To the extent that that isn't what he's indicating, the petitions were filed in the proper course and in the proper time frame. And I mean, I guess since that was more argument, it seems like we've gone into argument. I'm just going to say that the signature requirement was not met. Thank you.
Your closing argument.
I'll stand on what I just, I'll cite Green v. Board of Election Commissioners of the City of Chicago and Stout v. Black for the propositions under the law that your petition signature sheets must contain valid signatures of registered voters, and they have to be registered at the address cited on the sheet. And the law requires that strict compliance with that. Thank you very much.
Pastor Brown, your closing argument.
Well, let's all count. The 23rd was the final day for registration. The 24th was the first day of 5 business days that objections were allowed to be filed against a petition. The 24th was Tuesday. That's 1 finger. The 25th was Wednesday. That's 2 fingers. The 26th, a federal holiday, was Thanksgiving. That day was not counted. The 27th, which is a business day, it was a day off for the Election Commission, but it was not a federal holiday. It's 3 days. That following Monday, you had Monday, which made 4 days. You had Tuesday, that was 5 days. They filed on Wednesday at 3:05, which was past the deadline for filing an objection to any candidate's petition. That's just math.
Does that conclude your closing argument, Pastor?
I will say this, as a veteran of the United States Air Force, and I represent the voice of many citizens who are ready for change in a city that's shrinking at a record pace, a city that is ranked 18th as the most deadliest city in our nation, a city that is becoming unsafe to live. I have personally labored both in the private and in the public sector. I'm not here to challenge the rules. I am challenging the time that this motion was filed. I am also wise enough to understand the motive behind the challenge for Mr. Walraven. I have worked for nearly a decade. I've partnered with community partners throughout Peoria, Bloomington, Springfield. I've worked with over 100 area employers to create hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs to help make our city and our community a better place. Today I work with Starcrest Cleaners, a donation to help us give clothes to people who are suffering in COVID. I've worked with great people like Pastor King with Riverside and the Dream Center. I build relationships. I do not consider Mr. Walraven's had the best interests of our community by filing this objection. I think what he did was exercise his legal right to challenge this, to make this a more favorable opportunity for the candidate that he represents But what it does do is it does silence the voice of the people. I am in respect, total respect of whatever decision that is made by this fine board of citizens, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, and I'll adhere to whatever decision you all make.
Mr. Hanauer, do you have a rebuttal?
Now that I know exactly what he meant by the days, 5 business days, it was timely. It was timely within 5 business days. Thank you.
Thank you to both parties for your presentations today. At this time, I'd ask the electoral board for a motion to conclude the hearing for the purpose of presentation of evidence and to proceed to deliberations. We've got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Floor is open. Any comments, thoughts? Dr. Peno, we closed, so we're in deliberations. We can open back up if you guys choose to ask questions. Or you can present your question openly as well.
No, I just wanted to understand better the argument about the number of days that it post-filing that.
Can council elaborate on what the statute says as far as, because I'm curious as to know that, what the statute says about the question raised by the candidate. Is it 5 business days from the last date they have to file their nominating petitions, within which the objector has to file his objection?
So I just pulled up the statute on my smartphone. I'll read it out loud to you. Certificates of nomination and nomination papers and petitions to submit public questions to a referendum being filed as required by this code and being in apparent conformity with the provisions of this act shall be deemed to be valid unless objection thereto is duly made in writing within 5 business days after the last day for filing the certificate of nomination or nomination papers or petition for public question. So that is the direct quote. It's within 5 business days after the last day for filing. And then if you'll give me 1 second, I have one other thing to read. The second thing that I am reading from is, so the first quote was the statute itself. The second thing I'm going to read to you is from the State Board of Election, who puts out time frame guidance to the various election officials. So it talks about objections for candidate nomination filing. The heading is Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. The last day for filing objections to nomination papers of established political party or nonpartisan candidates in the office of a local election or election authority. The objection period is 5 business days. If the office of the election authority is open on Friday, November 27th, then the deadline is Tuesday, December 1st. Otherwise, if again, the heading is that it's December 2nd, on Wednesday is the deadline, if your office was not open on Friday, the 27th. So this is the Illinois State Board of Elections. That's for what it's worth. I read you the statute and I read you the State Board of Elections.
And
So
the office was closed on Friday, the 27th.
Just to be clear, I think the question would be better presented to Tom. So if you would prefer to open it up to question the witness again, it would be more than appropriate.
also move to open it up for questions.
Got a motion by Sandy,
I'd second that.
seconded by
Can I
Jim.
second that since it's my question for Tom?
Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Jim?
Tom, was the office open or closed on the 27th? I guess that is really the big question here.
The office was closed on the 27th, the Friday the 27th.
Would you leave the last day, the second, then,
Go ahead.
and they will file in a timely manner? The objection was filed on the second,
The objection was filed on the 2nd.
In a timely manner, yeah.
Any other questions? Not a motion to close and go back into deliberations.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other comments, thoughts before we kind of walk through the findings? Okay. Based on the evidence presented, I propose that the board make the following findings. One is the Peoria County Board of Election Commissioners is the properly constituted electoral board pursuant to the statute and has jurisdiction of the subject matter in each of the parties to this cause. Proper notice regarding the hearing on the objection was provided. On November 23rd, 2020, candidate Charles Brown filed nomination papers for the office of mayor of the city of Peoria. On December 2nd, 2020, the objector filed an objection to the candidate's nomination papers. We know that the candidate submitted 14 pages of petitions with signatures. We know that the candidate's petitions require 134 signatures and addresses of qualified voters for candidates to be placed on the ballot. Based on the evidence and the analysis done by the election commission staff, is understood that 52 of the 137 signatures were not registered at the listed address, or not registered within the city of Peoria. Therefore, would bring the total number of registered valid signatures to 85. Any other findings that have been presented that haven't captured? If not, I would accept a motion to, entertain a motion to accept the findings. Motion by Dr. Peno,
Second.
second by Jim. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having made those findings, is there a motion with respect to the objectors, Mr. Walraven's objection? Again, the motion could come in the form to sustain Mr. Walraven's objection would remove Pastor Brown from the ballot. To reject Mr. Walraven's objection would be to remain on the ballot.
I move that we reject the objectors.
So your motion is to reject the
Objectors.
objection, which would be to keep Pastor Brown on the ballot. There's a motion. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Sandy.
I said, the rules are, if the rules are the rules and it wasn't filed in a timely way, which is the way I understood it.
Okay, I want to make sure there's no confusion. If your motion is to reject the objection, then he would remain on the ballot.
Right. If, and basically, if I sustain the objectors,
then he's removed from the ballot.
right, and so no, I'm not sustaining.
Okay. So the motion, if you would rephrase your motion for
I
me,
move
please.
that we reject the objectors.
Okay. There's a motion to reject the objection.
Based on the timeliness.
The time, he said the timeliness was on time.
No, he did not submit his objection in
Hey,
time.
there's a hang on, guys. There's a motion on the floor. Before we go into questions and comments, we need a second. There is a motion. Is there a second? Motion fails on a second. I need an additional motion.
I make a motion that we sustain his
Objection.
objection.
There's a motion to sustain the objection. And there's a second. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Yeah, my comment is the sustaining the
Good,
objection.
just talking to the microphone. We're having a hard time hearing you up here.
Sustaining the objection is based on what?
Sustaining the objection would be, in this case, based on the findings that, and the findings that we all unanimously just accepted was that, and I'll read them again for you, that we are the proper electoral board for this setting. Proper notice was made about the objection in this hearing, and that on November 23rd, 2020, the candidate, Pastor Brown, filed nomination papers for the mayor's office. On December 2nd, 2020, the objector filed an objection to the candidate's nomination papers. 14 pages of signature sheets. We know that there's 134 signatures required to become a candidate for mayor. And we know that 58 of the 137 signatures that were provided to us were not registered voters. They were not registered at listed addresses or not registered within the city of Peoria. That is the findings before us that we accepted, and that's the motion and second to sustain the objection.
And
Can you clarify one more time? so
I
we
just-
understand?
Hang on. I think she's not
Yeah.
done with her questioning yet.
yeah, I still have another comment. So the objector was concerned about wanted the, wait a minute, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. It was imperative that the petitions be submitted on a certain date in a timely way.
Correct.
Okay, based on what we discussed, they were, because of the fact that the election commission was closed on Friday.
No.
I think that at this point, just procedurally, what I'm in my role to kind of guide the proceedings, you guys have had the deliberation, so everyone in their mind might have a different opinion about what was said or determined, but right now you just are voting. There's a motion on the floor to sustain the objector's petition. So if you can either vote yay or nay on whether or not to sustain the objector's petition. But as far as the underlying reasons for your vote, the findings of fact have already been voted on, and the date of December 1st versus 2nd wasn't one of the findings of fact. So now you're just simply voting on the whether to sustain the objector's petition. That's the vote that's before the commission right now. But I'm happy to if that's still confusing, or if there are procedural questions, I'm happy to clarify.
Sandy, do you have more questions?
No, I understand.
I mean, you're welcome to make comments on the motion itself.
But the motion is on the floor to either
But there is
sustain
a-
or reject.
There is
We
a
have- we
motion
have
to
to
sustain
to
at
sustain
at
at
this
this
point,
point,
and a
right.
second.
Right. And that was seconded already?
It has been seconded. Who had the motion in a second? Dr. Peno made the motion, Mark seconded it. No, Mark made the motion. Mark made it. Are there any other questions or comments on the motion, or procedural questions for our legal counsel?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor of sustaining the objection, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, so that passes 4-1. Section 1010 of the Election Code requires the Electoral Board must put its findings in writing and indicate which objections, if any, is sustained. That written decision then has to be served upon the parties in open proceedings before the Electoral Board. Since we need time to draft a written decision, I suggest that we briefly continue hearing on this matter too, and we've established our date and time as December 14th at 2 p.m. For the purpose of service of the written decision. I'd like to clarify that the presentation of evidence has already been closed and the decision on the objection has been rendered. So the only purpose for continuing this matter is to allow the Electoral Board to put the findings that we made today into writing, to distribute them to the parties. I'd also note that although the statute requires us to provide the written decision in an open meeting, the parties may but are not required to appear. And if they choose not to, the statute also allows for service of the written decision by mail. The parties can also agree to be served with the written decision by fax or email. So I would suggest reconvene on case number 20-03 on December 14th at 2 p.m. at the Peoria County Election Commission at 4422 Brandywine Drive, Suite 1, Peoria, Illinois, solely for the purpose of distributing the written decision to the candidates. And I would entertain a motion to that effect. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That concludes our hearing on case number 20-03.